Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria Mindock, editor of Cervena Barva Press, and this is Behind the Book. And today, my guest is Svet DiNahum, and he is the author of Escape from Crimea, and he has written numerous other novels and had them published besides screenplays and a TV sitcom. And today we're going to talk about his book and all the things that have happened to him since it's come out. So welcome, Svet.
Thank you so much for having me, Glo.
Oh, you're welcome. So, this book was published in 2019 in Bulgaria, 2020 in Ukraine, and then of course I published it in 2020 also. And I just can't believe all the things that have happened to you in Bulgaria since the book has come out. Um, I'm almost shocked. But what made you start writing about Crimea and these short stories? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. After Crimea was illegally annexed by Russia, so many people from Ukraine had to flee their homes, and they were on their way to look for their fortune all over the world. Some of them went through Bulgaria. Some of them stayed in Bulgaria with the Ukrainian community we have here. For some of them, Bulgaria was something like a stepstone on their way to Western Europe, to the United States and Canada. So for it was like during the World War II, when people were escaping the Nazi regime in Europe through Casablanca. And that's how I came to interview so many of them. And I was particularly interested in their stories, personal stories. And that's how I ran into this story of this lady who was victimized, tortured, harassed, persecuted in Crimea by the new head of the Russian militia himself. So she had to run for her life, and she managed to escape Crimea at night on a small fishing boat, and there was this fisherman who helped her. So I found this story very fascinating, and I wrote the story.
Yeah, no, it's really a wonderful book, and it's heart-wrenching too. I've
Thanks.
gotten many comments from people here saying, "Oh my God, it's very intense," they say, and I go, well, look what has happened there. And I'm amazed at how many people in the US really don't know much about the trouble that happened in Crimea and also in Eastern Ukraine. Right now, there still is trouble there. There are so many protests happening, which reminds me, in Bulgaria, I saw on the news, and you would know this better than me, protesters were out in the street. So I was wondering, are they protesting against Putin and the pro-Kremlin, or is it some other reason that they're protesting?
The protests in Bulgaria were happening in September most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I went to some of them. Basically, people want very basic things like justice, rule of law, and some of them were also protesting against Bulgaria's dependency on Russian energy project. Unfortunately, our government just built with our own taxpayers' money, which was about 3 to 4 billions, the so-called Russian-Turkish Balkan Stream, which was to the service of people like Putin, like the dictator Lukashenko, like Erdogan from Turkey, and Vucic in Serbia, and Mr. Orban in Hungary. So people were protesting against that too. I remember on September the 2nd, it was the most major protest. When I went there with my friends, I never realized how many police cars and jeeps and heavy equipment Bulgarian government had against the people.
Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes I try to find other news outlets for what's going on throughout the world because the journalism here in America has changed, I feel, and I don't think it's easy to get the right news anymore. And I know I'm going to get flack for that, even saying it, that's for sure. I mean, I know even with your book and all the problems that you have had with pro-Kremlin and Putin's men, it's just really hard to get stories about that, of what's happening, you know, to get publicity for the book, I'm finding, and I'm really surprised. I have other things I'm going to do, of course, and try for the book because it really needs to be read. You know, sometimes, like, as you know, I write a lot about injustice, atrocities, certain things that happen in the world. And I'm not a fan of the UN, but I won't get started on that because they don't never like to say there's a genocide or something happening because they don't want to get involved. So journalism, I think freedom of speech is disappearing in a lot of countries. I mean, look at, we have, well, Putin, of course, I call him a dictator. We have Venezuela, a dictator, China, a dictator, North Korea, a dictator. All these places that Putin gives his support to. And I feel things have got to change. With all this unrest, and you mentioned, I don't know how to say his name correct, Navalny, you know, with being poisoned, and now he's in prison again because he went back to Russia. And I heard Putin arrested 11,000 protesters. That's insane. So when your book came out, I know you were threatened with the same poison that he was given. Can you talk a little bit about that and what they said?
Sure. When I had my first book promotion in April 2019, after the end of the promotion, I had this person from the Union of Writers coming to me, and he said, I quote, they are going to destroy you. You are making the same provocation just like the British and MI6 did with a Skripal case, so you might eat Novichok as well. Gloria, to tell you the truth, I did not know how to perceive this, but for sure, for first time in my life, I felt like there is a serious group of people who are trying seriously to stop me. I felt I got involved in something which was really important for some group of people, and I knew already that they would put enormous amount of effort to stop me. Also, what I learned from my very few remaining friends was that after my book promotion, on the very next day, there has been a call from the Russian embassy here to the chairman of our union, of the Bulgarian Union of Writers. And immediately after this call, on the next day, the Bulgarian Union of Writers made this declaration in the media against me, against my book. And also they wanted the expelling of the Ukrainian ambassador to Bulgaria for his presence at my book promotion. And this letter was signed by 200 members of the Bulgarian Union of Writers and Bulgarian Pen Center, including the chairman of the Bulgarian Union of Writers, shamefully enough, by the honorary chairman of Bulgarian Pen Center. Actually, I was counting on some defense from the Bulgarian Pen Center, of which I was a member at that time. On the contrary, some of them signed this shameful declaration against the ambassador of Ukraine, and this letter was sent out to Bulgarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so on. I mean, also I had this, at the book promotion, I had these strange photographers who were just taking photos of me and disappearing, vanishing immediately. I managed to stop just one of them, asking him which media actually he was representing. And he murmured something, some information site. When I Googled it later, I found out that just site does not exist at all, and things like this.
Yeah, that's really scary. I think you're very courageous, especially with that happening. Um, and I'm really surprised about Penn, Bulgaria, because what is Penn supposed to do? It's Penn everywhere in the world. There seems to be a branch, and they're supposed to help people. Um, and I couldn't believe that when I heard that. And but you did something I thought which was great, and you wrote a declaration, you know, and started Penn. What's it called? Penn Democratic Center. Can you speak about that? Because I thought that was great.
Uh, I'm working on it. I have many followers on social media. I count on the younger generation of writers. And also we need journalists, because PEN needs to involve journalists too, not just writers and poets, in order to be able to defend freedom of speech and human rights. And over the last years, I proposed so many declarations to our PEN and so many programs so we could try to defend our colleagues in places like Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, Syria, etc. And all my motions were rejected. I don't wonder why. The chairman of the honorary chairman of Bulgarian PEN is a Moscow graduate.
Mm.
The chairman of the Bulgarian Union of Writers is a member of the leadership of Bulgarian Socialist Party, and now we have elections coming, and he's going to run for the parliament. So you see, all these people have been tied to USSR in the past, and now they are tied to Russian regime as well. They haven't changed much.
Mhm. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. And um, I'm really surprised, and I guess I shouldn't be, of how much Russia has involvement in Bulgaria. It's like, geez. And then wasn't there a newspaper too they expelled you from?
I was expelled from a newspaper which is called The Word Today.
Hmm.
Uh, it was very easy for them to expel me because the newspaper is owned by the Bulgarian Union of Writers.
Oh,
So, so
okay.
it was easy for them to do that. And speaking of Russian involvement in Bulgaria, I'll tell you honestly, Russia perceives Bulgaria as its own colony and as a Russian Trojan horse inside NATO and the European Union. First of all, we have like at least 65% of the population who are Russophiles. So it gives a natural environment to Russia to have its even emotional influence in Bulgaria. The other thing is that Russia has, how to say, a big presence in energy sector, oil, gas, uh, banks, insurance companies, finance, uh, Black Sea resorts, skiing resorts, uh, corporations, etc., etc. So it has enormous economic influence as well, not just political.
Hmm. It sounds like um, it's going to be hard to get them out of there, basically, from what you just said. You know, they have such a hold on everything there. So it seems like an uphill battle, but yet I always believe in being strong and fighting it. And that's what you're doing, and others too. Um, it's very scary because you never know what the day holds, it seems like. Um, and you've been speaking an awful lot on TV shows, and I love seeing the clips of you, even though I don't understand it. But I thought, good for you, and I really admire that. And you now have your own TV show to talk about Russian propaganda. Is that right?
We are two hosts, and our show now is called Visible and Invisible Propaganda. For now, it's a podcast which is broadcast on social media, YouTube, Facebook, and one channel which is called TV One. The thing, Gloria, is that we are people like me are a minority, and Bulgaria is kind of fighting within itself between those who support Russia and between those who don't. Um, there are many people who are against Putin's regime here in Bulgaria because I'm in contact every day with them on social media. The thing is that we don't have access to major media in Bulgaria, to the mainstream media, because mainstream media here is owned either by mobsters connected to Putin or by some Russian tycoons.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get attention then because you're fighting for it basically with smaller avenues, so to speak, and that. But you know, I really believe the right people will find you, and they are. You know, and I don't know. I really believe that we will see the fall of Putin. You know, I read yesterday that 1/3 of the people there want him to retire. 1/3 don't like him. And then, of course, 1/3 does. And he, if I understood this right, he changed the Constitution so he could add 12 more years to being president. I couldn't believe that. I mean, oh my God, 12 more years of him. Ah! So that wasn't good news, but there seems to be unrest in Russia too. So maybe we will see the fall of him. Maybe things will change, but there's still a lot of people, what I call the old school. And, you know, it seems like you'll be fighting them for a while, even if he does topple, you know.
You're quite right. There are a lot of protests in at least 150 cities all over Russia against Putin, and this is something happening for a first time. It's for a first time his rating is so low, like 27%.
Mm.
At the same time, he has this powerful machine of military and the so-called new federal service, federal security service, which is basically the former KGB, plus special forces like Alpha or OMON, all these paramilitary organizations who are arresting and beating people on the street. I hope we now see the beginning of the end of Putin. At the same time, there are two paths Russia might go to. One hopefully could be the way to democracy. The other one could be a theater play played by KGB, like replacing Putin with somebody else who still would be part of the KGB structures and trying to outwit the West that there has been a transition in Moscow, in Kremlin.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then it'll just create the same old problems, you know, freedom of expression still having to be fought for. Yeah, it's interesting, but you know, I keep thinking, well, maybe we'll see, oh, I guess you could call it with the uprising, maybe a civil war in some ways, but maybe the people won't allow a new, you know, somebody kind of new, but it's the old hat, so to speak. Maybe there's hope for Navalny. I don't know, you know, but at least with your book, you know, you definitely stirred things up. And I think it's really great. It's a remarkable book. And again, you know, it's such an honor to publish it and to talk about these issues. There's so many countries in the same boat, you know, can't say what they want, can't speak up because there's fear of being killed. And with you being threatened, you have to be careful and have your eyes wide open. And that's a real shame, you know, that you can't have that freedom without worry.
First of all, I'm very, very thankful to you and to Cervena Barva Press. In my language, it would be pronounced Cervena Barva, which would mean red color.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm very thankful to your press for publishing my book in the United States. This is very, very important for me. And right now, it's also a big defense for me in the situation I'm in. And I want to tell you that actually I feel honored to receive the strongest rebuke from the pro-Kremlin Bulgarian leadership of the Bulgarian Union of Writers since 1970, when the same group protested against the Nobel Prize for Literature being awarded to Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Uh, Even though they put so much energy to stop me, as you see, I continue to do whatever I can do on TV shows and podcasts, and I also write articles in the media.
Mhm. Which is great. And yeah, you just have to keep doing it and keep fighting, and have the people around you that support you, and that help you get your voice out there. And I would like to think other countries will jump on board too, writers in other countries besides the media. um, and thank God for social media, because I think it gets the word out to people other than the journalists, other than the politicians, things like that, the people. And that's what it's really all about, is the people, reaching them, and having that voice not taken away, you know, so.
You're absolutely right. There are so many people who want democracy, and my next step would be to fight for access to the big media. Of course, this is tough thing to do, but I will keep trying. We have so many people whose voice just cannot be heard because they don't have access to the big media. And I told you why, because this
Mhm.
big media is owned by these pro-Russian tycoons.
Right. And well, yeah, there's, big media here too. And some of it is biased. Um, and again, like I said earlier, I'm going to get flack for saying that, but it's how I feel. Sometimes, even here, you can't say what you want. Most of the time, you can, of course. Um, but I've noticed a change in things. So hopefully, things here get better. I love my country, of course, and the people and that. But it's just really interesting. Sometimes people in the U.S. stay in their own little corner because things don't affect them. Everything's fine here, but then. They don't want to get involved with things in other countries that are going on sometimes. And that I find really problematic. Um, Again, like I mentioned, the UN and certain things that really make me angry. you know, it's like, wake up. And I think if more people got involved, it would be a better world. And sanctions, I don't know what good that is sometimes. You hear, oh, sanctions on this country, sanctions on that country, but things don't change.
Uh, we both are graduates of the Southern Illinois University.
I know,
So,
yay!
so I love America too. And I really have high hopes for the new president. Uh, in comparison with with his predecessor, I mean, uh, the first actions and the first speeches of President Biden are very well embraced here, especially by us in Eastern Europe, because our best defense comes from the United States. And we were very worried during the term of Mr. Trump. We were very worried about our security. Actually, those were the years in which Trump was just turning his the other way whenever Putin was doing something wrong.
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of American media, I believe it's free enough. Just I think it was very demanding time for America during the Trumpist era, and you had to put so much energy to kind of withstand Trump's behavior. Also, I must tell you that I tried. I wrote letters to newspapers like New York Times, LA Times, medias like CNN, and so many others. But to tell you straight, friendly in the American way, I'm just a guy from the middle of nowhere to them. So, I mean, it's really tough to raise awareness. That's why I really appreciate your effort. Let's hope something happens.
Yes, I hope so too. Like I told you, I sent information to 30 newspapers, 30. I didn't hear one thing, but I don't give up either because I'm very persistent, especially in something I believe in. And I really believe too that the US will be better now. Um, you know, seeing, I'm sure you saw in the media what happened at the Capitol and stuff. I never thought I would live to see such horror. You know, it was pretty bad. So all I can say is I have hope for democracy everywhere for those that are fighting for it. And you have me in your corner, and my friends too here, and many writers that have spoken to me. Um, so you're never alone, and always remember that if things get rougher, you know, and I have a pretty big mouth here, so I'll raise hell.
No.
So I really want to thank you so much for, talking about your book today and about everything that's going on and all the things that writing this book has caused for you. Um, but you are, to me, the most wonderful person, the most courageous, brave, nicest person. And I am so honored to publish you, to know you. And I look forward to many years of friendship forever. So thank you so much. And I'm going to stop recording now. And